Let's talk about Iran first and set the stage. Iran, you've established, is the Hamas terror state's single biggest sponsor. How extensive is that support? What form does that take?
They give Hamas money, they give it training, they give it weapons, they give it weapons know-how, they give it diplomatic support, and they give it the military support of all of the other proxies in their resistance axis.
That so-called Ring of Fire.
The Ring of Fire.
And what is Iran's strategic interest here? Did Iran build up Hamas, Hezbollah, the other proxies, to use as a doomsday weapon with which to destroy the Jewish state? Or was it, as in particular from conversations with European officials, this perspective, no, this was intended as a defensive measure to contain Israel and allow Iran to dominate the Middle East by keeping its most powerful actor at bay? What is the reason that Iran is backing Hamas? What is it trying to get out of this relationship?
Iran wants to destroy Israel, and it wants to undermine the American order in the Middle East. So it has a long-term strategy to drive the United States first from the Persian Gulf and then from the entire Middle East. Israel is the greatest regional impediment to that project because Israel is the only power that is really engaged directly in military competition with it and capable of diminishing it significantly as it is done.
How much knowledge, advanced knowledge, do you think the Islamic Republic of Iran had about October 7th?
I think they had general understanding from what we know, and I can only go by what people who've seen the most sensitive intelligence have told me, but it could change. They had a general understanding of what Hamas intended to do. They didn't know about the timing of the attack, and Hamas jumped the gun. There was no clear coordination between Gaza and Beirut, for example.
Yeah,
which was a terrible, from the point of view of Iran. This was a missed opportunity.
Yeah. What is absolutely terrifying about October 7th is the understanding that it could have been so much worse. That if Sinwar had not been so hasty and had coordinated properly with Hezbollah, and they had invaded in a pincer movement, Hezbollah had plans to invade Israel 50 miles into Israel. It would have made October 7th look like child's play. And in some ways, as horrific and barbaric as the atrocities of October 7th were, we were saved the worst because Sinwar jumped the gun. And October 7th has blown up spectacularly in the face of the Islamic Republic of Iran. No one could have imagined that Iran's financial, military, moral, diplomatic support for Hamas would lead to a domino chain reaction that would see the complete obliteration of Hezbollah. We're filming this just a day after Hassan Nasrallah's funeral. His successor was not at the funeral. The Air Force that killed Nasrallah was. Hezbollah is gone. The Assad regime has fallen. Iran is stripped of its air defenses, and I think that an Israeli attack on the nuclear facilities is almost a foregone conclusion this year.
I don't, and that relates to my objection to your position on Qatar. But we can get to that in a bit.
We'll get to that in a second. Interesting. We'll pause that thought. But October 7th has exploded spectacularly in the faces of the Iranian regime. This is not what they were planning. This is not what Hamas was supposed to do. And so I wonder, is October 7th the case of the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog?
It could have been even worse than you described, because.
Oh, go on. That's the optimistic scenario?
No. As a senior Israeli official recently said to me, if Hamas hadn't stopped to rape and torture in the Gaza envelope, and it had just pushed on to Hebron and Jerusalem, it could have gotten to Jerusalem on that day. And can you imagine what that would have, the excitement that would have elicited all around the Islamic world, among every hater of Israel and every hater of the West? It would have the idea that if you had Hamas gunmen from Gaza on the outskirts of pushing all the way to the outskirts of Jerusalem, it would have changed the whole, I think, shape, the political shape of the event.
It would have elicited an outburst of jihadi, messianic, apocalyptic fervor that would have excited every jihadist in the world.
This is a really obvious statement. Now, when he said it to me, it's a very obvious statement. But it had not occurred to me that they could have done that. If they had, I think they were probably themselves surprised at the lack of Israeli defenses on that day.
Looking back, I was in Tel Aviv at the time. I didn't think that I was in imminent danger. I mean, there were rockets. There was a rocket that hit a building 100 meters away from my front door. But apart from that, I wasn't scared that Hamas gunmen were going to rock up underneath my building in Tel Aviv. And in hindsight, I should have been. But I'll get back to this question. Was October 7th a case of the tail wagging the dog, given that the Iranian regime built this network of proxy armies to protect its regime and then ended up going to war with ballistic missiles to try to protect its proxies?
I think I wouldn't put it tail wagging the dog, because I think that they actually intended to have something like this happen, take place at a time of their choosing. It's just that that Hamas jumped the gun. More and more, we're learning that the plans existed to try to do exactly what you said: have Hezbollah invade the Galilee, and for Hamas to carry out an attack of this kind in the Gaza envelope.